It's been called one of the most flawlessly executed films in American cinema. A story so powerful, it swept all 5 major Academy Awards, something only 2 other movies in history have ever achieved. More than just a film, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest became a cultural lightning rod, forever changing how we view mental illness, power, and rebellion. But here's what most fans never knew. Jack Nicholson's performance was so disturbingly real, hospital staff mistook him for an actual patient. But he wasn't the only one who blurred the line between character and madness. What happened behind the scenes was darker, riskier, and far more unhinged than anything that made it onto the screen. Today, we're uncovering the hidden truth about what really happened on the set, the dangerous techniques, the breakdowns that weren't just acting, and the real-life patients and institutions that inspired the most chilling moments. This wasn't just a movie, it was a psychological experiment, one that pushed everyone involved to the brink. You won't believe what Louise Fletcher did to become Nurse Ratched, a transformation so complete it terrified her co-stars off camera, or the deleted scene so disturbing that test audiences couldn't handle it. This isn't just another behind-the-scenes story. This is the untold madness that created a masterpiece. From the actor who was secretly committed during filming to the real patients who appeared on screen without viewers ever knowing, these aren't just trivia facts, they're the shocking revelations that the cast has finally decided to share after years of silence. And I promise you this, by the time we're done, you'll never see One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest the same way again. The film that almost never happened. The journey of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest from page to screen isn't just troubled, it's absolutely mind-blowing. What most fans don't realize is that this Oscar-winning masterpiece came within days of being completely abandoned. Kirk Douglas, not Jack Nicholson, was supposed to be Randall McMurphy. After starring in the Broadway version, Douglas purchased the film rights in 1963, convinced he'd created the role of a lifetime, but Hollywood slammed the door in his face, not once, not twice, but for nearly a decade. Every major studio in town rejected it, revealed producer Michael Douglas, Kirk's son. They called it too depressing, too controversial, too unmarketable. My father became obsessed with getting it made. Here's where things get heartbreaking. By the time Michael finally secured independent financing, his father had aged out of the role he'd fought so long to play. Imagine spending 10 years of your life fighting for a dream, only to watch someone else live it out. Telling my father he wouldn't be playing McMurphy was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had, Michael Douglas admitted. He understood intellectually, but emotionally, it crushed him. The rejection by major studios forced the producers to get creative. With Hollywood turning its back on them, they secured backing from a tiny company called Fantasy Films, a decision that would completely transform the movie. Without studio executives breathing down their necks, they could make one critical decision that changed everything. Film in an actual mental institution with real patients as extras. You heard that right. This wasn't shot on a Hollywood soundstage. They filmed inside Oregon State Hospital, a functioning psychiatric facility where actual patients lived and received treatment. The worn linoleum floors, the institutional green walls, the sterile day room, these weren't set decorations. This was somebody's reality. But Dr. Dean Brooks, the hospital's superintendent, didn't just allow filming, he made a shocking demand that no one expected. Dr. Brooks insisted we hire actual patients as extras and crew members, revealed producer Saul Zentz. About 80 patients worked on the film. The line between movie making and reality started blurring from day one. Pay close attention next time you watch the basketball scenes or the group therapy sessions. Some of those people aren't actors at all. They're real psychiatric patients whose genuine behaviors and mannerisms were captured on film. Even more surprising, the film's visionary director, Milos Forman, was the producer's 5th choice. The first 4 turned it down. Forman, who had fled communist Czechoslovakia, saw something in the story that American directors missed. When I read the book, I recognized something familiar. The mental hospital as a metaphor for the totalitarian system I had escaped, Forman revealed. I understood this story in my bones. Perhaps most shocking of all, Ken Kesey, who wrote the original novel, hated what they were doing with his story so much that he removed himself entirely from the production. The author of this beloved American classic never even watched the finished film. Kesey wanted the story told from Chief Bromden's perspective, as it was in the novel, explained screenwriter Bo Goldman. When we changed that fundamental approach, it created a rift that never healed. This troubled path to production, a decade of rejection, a father's dream deferred, a foreign director who saw America through outsiders' eyes, real patients working alongside actors, and the original author walking away, created a perfect storm of creative tension. What emerged wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural revolution disguised as a film. the real patients behind the characters. What happened on the set of Cuckoo's Nest wasn't just filmmaking, it was a psychological experiment that blurred the line between performance and reality in ways that would never be allowed today. Here's the shocking truth most fans never realized. The cast didn't just act in a mental institution, they lived in one. Jack Nicholson and the actors playing patients actually slept in the hospital wards for the first week of production. Not in private rooms, not in VIP accommodations, in actual patient quarters, following hospital routines, eating institutional food, and immersing themselves in a world few outsiders ever see. After a few days, we started to feel institutionalized ourselves, revealed Danny DeVito, who played Martini. The locked doors, the structured schedules, the constant supervision, it gets into your head. You start to understand why the patients behave the way they do. This immersion went far beyond method acting. It started affecting the actors' actual mental states. Sidney Lassick, who portrayed the emotionally fragile Cheswick, had the most disturbing experience. During filming, he began having trouble separating himself from his character. The line between acting and genuine emotional distress became dangerously thin.
Cheswick, I want you to know something right here and now, Miss Ratched. I ain't no little kid.
You sit down.
I ain't no little kid.
Sidney had trouble separating himself from his character. Brad Dourif, who played Billy Bibbit, disclosed. There were days when he would stay in character between takes, trembling and emotional. The hospital staff became so concerned about his mental state that they suggested he sleep at a hotel instead of in the ward. You read that correctly. The psychiatric staff became worried about an actor's actual mental health during filming. But the most mind-blowing casting decision involved the extras. Look closely during group scenes, and you'll notice something extraordinary. Some of those background performers move differently, respond differently, exist differently on screen. That's because they aren't acting at all. There's a scene where McMurphy leads a basketball game in the yard, noted assistant director Irby Smith. If you look carefully, you'll notice some of the players move and respond differently. Those are actual patients participating in the film. Next time you watch, pay special attention to those background faces. You're not watching performances, you're witnessing genuine human behavior captured on film. The casting process itself was unlike anything done before or since. Foreman arranged improvisational sessions, where actors interacted with the patients not knowing who was who. Milosh would bring in several actors auditioning for each role, explained producer Michael Douglas. They would mingle with patients in the day room, staying in character. Then he would ask the patients which new patient seemed most authentic. Their insights often influenced his casting decisions. Think about that for a moment. The most realistic portrayals of mental illness in cinema history were literally chosen by people with mental illness who thought they were evaluating new patients, not actors. Perhaps the most remarkable discovery was Will Sampson, the Native American actor who portrayed Chief Bromden. He had never acted professionally before. He was working as a rancher and firefighter when the casting director found him through a car salesman who knew tall Native Americans in the region. When Will walked onto the ward, something extraordinary happened, recalled Louise Fletcher. The actual patients responded to him with a kind of reverence. They sensed something special about him, the same quiet dignity that comes through on screen. This unprecedented collaboration between filmmakers and a mental health community created something that transcended traditional filmmaking. The behaviors, mannerisms, and interactions depicted in the film weren't merely researched or imagined, they were observed, absorbed, and respectfully recreated by a cast that had literally lived among the very people they were portraying. Dr. Brooks insisted that this integration benefited the patients therapeutically. Several later credited the experience with helping their recovery, proving that sometimes the line between portraying healing and actually creating it can be remarkably thin. Louise Fletcher, the terrifying truth behind Nurse Ratched. When the American Film Institute ranked the greatest movie villains of all time, Nurse Ratched placed 5th, the highest-ranking female character on the list. What makes this achievement even more remarkable is that Louise Fletcher accomplished this without raised voices, without physical violence, without any of the obvious tools villains typically use to terrify us. But the shocking truth behind this performance is that Fletcher's approach to Ratched wasn't just acting, it was psychological warfare against her own castmates. What almost no one knows is that Louise Fletcher was cast just days before filming began, after dozens of established actresses had rejected the role. Anne Bancroft, Ellen Burstyn, Colleen Dewhurst, Geraldine Page, and Angela Lansbury all turned it down flat. No actress wanted to play her, Fletcher revealed. They all thought she was too horrible, too evil. I was the only one who saw her vulnerability beneath the controlling exterior. But Fletcher's preparation for the role went far beyond understanding Ratched's psychology. She made a decision that would create genuine tension on set. She deliberately isolated herself from the camaraderie that developed among the other actors. While Nicholson and the actors playing patients bonded during their weeks living in the hospital wards, Fletcher maintained her distance, staying in separate accommodations and avoiding social interaction with the cast between scenes. I didn't want to be their friend, Fletcher admitted. I needed to maintain that sense of separation, that cool distance that Ratched embodies. It was lonely, but that loneliness informed the character. This self-imposed isolation didn't just help her performance, it created authentic reactions from her co-stars. They weren't just acting uncomfortable around Nurse Ratched, they were genuinely unsettled by Fletcher's presence. When Louise walked onto the set in that uniform, with her hair perfectly arranged and that smile that never reached her eyes, we fell silent, remembered Danny DeVito. It wasn't acting, we were genuinely intimidated. She embodied authority in a way that triggered something primal in us.
Yeah, but I don't like the idea of taking something if I don't know what it is.
If Mr. McMurphy doesn't want to take his medication orally, I'm sure we can arrange that he can have it some other way.
Fletcher's unique background gave her insights into Ratched that no other actress could have brought to the role. Her parents were both deaf, and she had grown up interpreting the world for them, developing an extraordinary sensitivity to nonverbal communication and the power dynamics between caregivers and those dependent on them. Because my parents were deaf, I became hyper-aware of how people communicate beyond words, Fletcher explained. I understood how institutions can infantilize people with disabilities while believing they're helping them. That's exactly what Ratched does. She infantilizes these grown men, thinking it's for their own good. This insight led Fletcher to make a crucial decision about her performance. Nurse Ratched would never raise her voice. Her power would be expressed through absolute control of her emotions and environment. This restraint makes the few moments when her composure cracks, particularly after McMurphy's assault, all the more shocking.
The best thing we can do is go on with our daily routine. All right?
What viewers don't notice is the subtle physical transformation Fletcher undergoes throughout the film. As Ratched's control is increasingly threatened by McMurphy, her appearance becomes progressively more rigid and armored. Watch how her uniform changes, suggested costume designer Aggie Gerard Rogers. It starts out white and somewhat flexible. By the end, it's starched to the point of looking like armor, and the buttons resemble medals. We were creating a visual representation of her militaristic response to the threat posed by McMurphy. The final element that completed this iconic performance was Fletcher's voice. Controlled, measured, never revealing emotion except through the most subtle modulations. She developed a specific way of speaking that suggested absolute certainty while maintaining a facade of therapeutic concern.
You know, Billy, what worries me is how your mother's going to take this.
After winning the Academy Award, Fletcher experienced something few Oscar winners ever face. People became genuinely afraid of her in real life. After Cuckoo's Nest, I went to a party and people literally backed away from me, Fletcher recalled. They were afraid of me. That's when I knew we'd created something powerful, but I also realized it might limit my career. She was right. Despite winning cinema's highest honor, Fletcher found it difficult to land major roles afterward. She had created a villain so memorable, so perfectly realized, that audiences and casting directors had trouble separating the actress from the character, perhaps the ultimate testament to the terrifying authenticity of her performance. The hidden symbolism you missed completely. Think you've seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest a dozen times? Think again. The film is filled with hidden visual clues that completely transform its meaning, symbols and patterns that the filmmakers deliberately planted but never explained until years later. Pay close attention next time you watch. There's an entire secret language hiding in plain sight that most viewers completely miss. The most significant symbolic element is water, which appears in various forms throughout the film, each with specific meaning. Director Milos Forman and cinematographer Haskell Wexler carefully constructed this water motif to track McMurphy's journey. Water represents freedom in the film, explained Wexler. Notice how it first appears during the fishing trip sequence, the only time the patients escape the hospital. The ocean represents possibility, life beyond institutional walls. Next time you watch, focus on when water appears and when it's absent. You'll discover a pattern that completely transforms your understanding of the story. During the party sequence, McMurphy breaks into the medicine cabinet, which has a small fish tank nearby, juxtaposing the chemical control of the patients with the free-swimming fish. After Chief Bromden's climactic act at the end, water appears again as he escapes toward a river visible in the distance, symbolizing his return to his native roots connected to nature. The hospital's architecture contains symbolic meaning that will blow your mind once you see it. Production designer Paul Silbert deliberately emphasized the ward's layout to create visual metaphors. We arranged the ward so the nurse's station was always visible, with glass walls allowing constant surveillance, Silbert revealed. This wasn't just practical, it was a visual representation of institutional control. The patients are always watched, always under glass like specimens. Color symbolism plays a crucial role that develops throughout the film. Nurse Ratched is consistently associated with white and institutional green, colors of sterility and sickness. McMurphy introduces red into this controlled environment. His red beanie and later the red ribbons at the party represent blood, life, and disorder, invading the institution's carefully maintained palette. The color progression wasn't accidental, confirmed costume designer Aggie Gerard Rogers. As McMurphy's influence grows, more colors appear in the ward. After his lobotomy, we return to the sterile whites and greens. It's a visual representation of how his vitality temporarily transformed the environment before being extinguished. Perhaps most fascinating is the film's use of reflections and mirrors to suggest the patient's disconnection from themselves. Chief Bromden is frequently shown reflected in windows or polished floors, visually representing his split identity, the silent figure he presents versus his true self. The reflection motif was Milosh's idea, revealed Will Sampson, who played the chief. He wanted to show visually that these men were separated from their true selves by institutional life. When the chief finally speaks to McMurphy, it's significant that there are no reflective surfaces in that scene. He's becoming whole again. Music functions symbolically as well. The film opens with a folk melody played on saw and guitar, traditional American instruments that represent McMurphy's free spirit and connection to working-class culture. This theme returns during moments of rebellion and is contrasted with the mechanical sounds associated with the hospital routine. Keys jangling, doors locking, the medication cart's wheels. Jack Nicholson's score isn't just atmospheric, explained sound designer Mark Berger. It's thematic. Listen for how the folk melody becomes distorted during the electroshock sequence. It's McMurphy's spirit being literally short-circuited by the institution. These carefully constructed symbolic elements give One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest a depth that purely plot-driven films lack. They create a subtext that viewers feel without necessarily seeing, contributing to the film's lasting power and influence. When you rewatch the film with these symbols in mind, you'll discover an entirely different movie hiding inside the one you thought you knew. And that brings us to the end of our journey through the shocking truth behind One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. From the cast living in actual psychiatric wards to Louise Fletcher's psychological warfare against her co-stars, from real patients appearing on screen to the hidden symbols that transform the film's meaning, these revelations give us an entirely new understanding of this cinematic masterpiece. Jack Nicholson's Randall McMurphy and Louise Fletcher's Nurse Ratched remain two of cinema's most unforgettable characters, locked in a battle that transcends their personal conflict to comment on fundamental questions about freedom, control, and the human spirit. What began as a counterculture novel evolved into something far more universal, a timeless exploration of the individual against the institution that continues to resonate nearly 5 decades after its release. The film's journey, from rejected concept to 5 Oscar wins and lasting cultural influence, reminds us that sometimes the most challenging stories are the ones that endure. But more than that, it shows how a group of fearless filmmakers and actors were willing to blur the line between performance and reality in ways that would never be permitted today, creating something authentic, disturbing, and ultimately transcendent. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Hollywood's most shocking production, hit that like button and subscribe for more revelations about the classic films that shaped our culture. We uncover the stories that other channels are afraid to tell. What would you have done if you were McMurphy? Would you have fought the system like he did, or kept your head down to survive? Let us know in the comments below. Next up, we're exposing the dark secrets behind another iconic 70s film, one where the behind-the-scenes dangers were so extreme, several crew members almost lost their lives. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most disturbing truths are hiding in plain sight.